How you doing, guys and gals? My name is Doug Wilson, and this is Yellowhawk Customs Outdoors. I got 3 blades here. Got the original Schrade SCHF 43. This is the original version with the Saber Grind. This is the original. I have the new one that they put out recently, that they've been offering recently, with the hollow grind. There's the hollow grind edge on it. You can see the difference between these two knives. One has a hollow grind and the other one has a traditional saber grind. Okay, so I got those two. And I also have the new JX5. All 3, well, both of these knives were designed by Chris Tanner at Prepared Mind 101. Now I know Chris Tanner personally, and most of his designs that he has offered to the community over the last few years are tried and true to this point, right? Except for this one, and I have no doubt that this one's going to do well also, right? This is the JX5 CPM 3V. These are made by Bark River, and this guy here, these guys are made by Taylor Brands or Schrade. Okay, now before we get into these 3 blades and the controversy between these two and why they changed the grind and my thoughts on that and whatnot, I'm going to give you a close-up of all 3 of them one more time. The JX5, this is Chris's newest design, and these are all choppers. Primary design, primarily designed to be choppers, big heavy use field knives, right? There's the hollow grind, which Chris Tanner's pretty upset about, and I would be too. And there's the old tried and true saber grind, SCHF 43. You guys stay tuned, and we're going to talk about these knives, the grinds, stuff like that. I'll give you my thoughts and whatnot. Stick around, we'll be right back. This part of the video is just going to be some thoughts, okay? We're going to keep this one out of it for now, okay? So I'm just going to put this one over here. SCHF 43. This is the older one, the original version with the saber grind. Okay. Schrade or Taylor Brands, in its infinite wisdom, has decided, without Chris's permission, right? Now I understand that Schrade owns all the rights to this knife. However, Chris's name is still on it, right? And I think that's where the issue lies. If they took Chris's name off of it, made it into something else, that's their prerogative, right? But his name is still on this, and it's just common courtesy to notify the designer if you're going to make a major change, like a different grind, okay? Now, we all know that a saber grind is a good grind for this type of knife. It's an all-around great woodworker, chopper, right? You get, across the board, you get good results out of this grind. It's a saber grind. It stays fairly thick, right? When you start, here at the shoulder, it stays fairly thick, right? And then it goes into a secondary edge bevel, right? Good grind for this knife, nice and strong, okay? Now, Taylor Brands has, I guess, taken it unto themselves because they're such experts at grinds now, I guess. I don't know. But they've chosen to put a hollow grind on this. Now, here's what I know about hollow grinds. A hollow grind knife does one thing very well. Primarily one thing very well. And that is slicing. Okay? Hollow grinds make great slicers. Why? Because at the apex of the edge, it's really thin, right? Makes a great slicing knife, right? Now, I'm not going to get into what knives have hollow grinds and whatnot, okay? I'm just going to go across the board and say hollow grinds are great slicers, okay? That's their primary function. Great slicers, okay? This knife is not a slicer. Can it slice? Yes. It can slice real well now, right? But what happened to that tough edge that was in that Saber Grind? What happened to it? Now, I don't know if you can ascertain here what's going on, but this edge here is fairly thick. It's a thick edge, right? Comes down to a secondary edge bevel, right? This is a thick grind. There's, you know, an 1/8 inch of steel there, right? Right at the middle, you know, the middle point of the Saber Grind, right? Then it goes down into a secondary edge bevel, which is a pretty strong grind, okay? This one here, you got about a 1/16 of an inch, right, of steel there, and it just makes for a great slicer, but a weak edge, right? Markedly weaker than a Saber Grind, which they should have just kept in the first place, okay? So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to sit here and chop pennies in half or chop nails in half. We don't do that in the field with knives, okay? But I am going to chop some hardened wood and see if I can do any damage to this hollow grind, okay? Honestly, I don't think I'm going to be able to, and here's the reason, okay? Under normal use, this hollow grind should be fine for this knife. Is it the ideal grind for this knife? No. This one is. The designer put the ideal grind on this knife, right? This knife is a lot tougher than this knife is. It's just hands down tougher, okay? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to chop some hardened wood with the hollow grind and see if I can cause any damage to it under normal but hard use, okay? So let's try it. Let's give it a shot, all right? Let me put the JX5 over here. That's a beast. This thing is a beautiful, different... I tell you, I give Chris's designs one thing. They are different looking, right? They're different. They follow design parameters, usage parameters that are in his head, and they work fairly well, okay? So, let's see what we can do here. This is hardened maple, all right? Now I'm just whacking at it, all right? I'm whacking pretty good at it. I weigh 230 pounds, fairly strong. Let me look at the edge. I haven't done anything to this edge. This is right out of the box. This knife was part of an order for a sheath systems, okay? That came in from a buddy of mine in Turkey who's having a bunch of sheaths made by us, all right, sheath systems. And when he found out that this was a Saber Grind, he told me to keep it. Do whatever you want with it, I don't want it, okay? I can understand why he's saying that. However, I haven't been able to damage the edge yet, okay? Let's keep going and see if I can. No damage yet. Okay? To be perfectly honest, the amount of steel that's still there, even though it's a hollow grind, is still fairly substantial. Not as good as this, okay? Not as thick as this, right? Which is the stronger edge. However, I think you picked up something when you changed the Saber Grind to a hollow grind. Now you have better slicing capability, better feather sticking capability, okay? Look, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, okay? I know Chris is pissed off that they changed the grind of his design, and I would be too, okay? I'm trying to see it from a different angle, that's all, right? Not trying to start any fights or any controversy. I'm trying to see it from a different angle. Is there some benefits to this hollow grind? There is, but is it beneficial enough to override the hard useness that was the intention of this knife? I don't know. Ooh, mama. That's still fairly sharp. This is 1070 tool, high carbon tool steel. I don't see any damage yet. I mean, fact of the matter is, if I put it in this stump and I hammer it in a quarter of the way and I bend it to a certain point, I guarantee you I'm going to snap the tip off of this knife, right? However, I can do the same thing with this one. Hammer it into a certain point, keep on going, and at some point this knife is going to break, okay? Basically what I'm getting at is, the steels we have nowadays across the board are a lot more refined and stronger than they used to be 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Depends on how far you go back as to how much of a difference there was, okay? Okay, so let's do a little bit more chopping, okay? Now, the reason I'm chopping is because that is the intended purpose for this knife. This is the #1 reason this knife exists, is for heavy use. Chopping is about as heavy as it gets, okay? You can pry with it. You can pry with any knife, but at a certain point, any knife is going to break on you. I don't care who makes it. I don't care what the heat treat is. I don't care what the steel is. At a certain point, every knife that is stressed enough laterally is going to break, okay? And let's go back to the steel thing again. Most of the steels we have nowadays are pretty good steels, worthy of making knives out of, okay? You know, you got softer steels like 01, 1095, 1060, right? High carbons, all the way up to the super steels, which are really strong, really tough, really wear resistant, okay? Like CPM 3V. The fact of the matter is, if the Jessica X had a hollow grind made out of CPM 3V, it would be a very strong knife because of the nature of the steel that you made it from, okay? Would it be as strong as a Saber Grind Jessica X in CPM 3V? No. We're talking relative terms here, okay? But I have not yet been able to damage this edge under hard, normal use. I'm not talking about chopping pennies in half and nails and stuff, okay? And banging it against another piece of steel. That's going to chip any knife, okay? All right. Get a bigger piece up here. Hammer it in a little bit more. This is a bigger piece of hardened maple. Okay, bigger piece of hardened maple. Problem is, it's not big enough to sit here by itself. Alright, I'm whacking the shit out of this edge. I haven't seen any damage yet. Nope, not yet. You can see the edge, still pretty good. No chips, no rolls, no nothing. Okay. Like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Banging the shit out of this edge to see if I can do any damage with it or to it under hard normal use. Okay. Haven't been able to yet. There's another thing we need to discuss about how tough an edge is. And that's the angle of the edge itself. Okay. Most companies, production knife companies, will put on anywhere from a 22 to a 25 degree edge, okay? I don't know what this one is, okay? But the thinner you go on the edge, the more susceptible it is to rolling and chipping. Steels like CPM 3V, the super steels, you can get a much thinner edge and still keep a fairly strong edge than you can with forgeable steels like 1060, 01, 1095, A2, right? Forgeable steels, high carbon forgeable steels. You can get a much thinner edge with the super steels without edge corruption under hard use, okay? Than you can with normal forgeable steels like this, okay? But it looks to me like under normal hard use, this edge is fairly strong. Again, devil's advocate, right? Got to give me my perks here. Is it as strong as this one? No. Okay? I think that's what Chris is upset at. They went from a premium, intentional saber grind that he intended to put on this knife to a hollow grind. But what I'm trying to say here is hollow grinds in their own right have positive attributes. They're great slicers. So in a choke up situation, this edge, this grind is going to slice and feather stick better for you than that Saber Grind is, okay? Generally, across the board. So let's see if we can, I'm gonna set up some wood and see if we can't feather stick with it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna feather stick. I'm gonna bust down some wood. I'm gonna feather stick with the regular Schrade, the one with the Saber Grind, and then I'm gonna feather stick with the hollow grind one, see if there's any difference. See if there's any noticeable difference to me, okay? Huh, must be in wood rats. This is all well-seasoned wood. This stuff's been out here for a year or so. Let me get something heavier. This is actually gray birch. Alright. There's a couple pieces I can feather stick with. Mosquitoes out here are terrible. Okay, so let me try the regular Schrade first. This guy here. I want to see if there's any noticeable difference when I feather stick. Now, I'm not a big knife guy, okay, and this is the reason. They're unwieldy when you're doing, you know, they're hard to control when you're doing hard, smaller tasks like this, okay. But for these purposes, let's see. This is the Saber Grind. Okay, these are pretty wispy feathers. This edge has not been touched up or anything. This edge is probably a year old. I've never sharpened it. And then with the alright, so they're pretty wispy feathers. To me, it doesn't make the best feather sticker because it's so big, okay? But can you do it? Absolutely. I'm doing it. Alright? Does it make good curls? Absolutely. And if there was a great edge on this, it'd make even better curls. Okay? So, let's get rid of those. Right? Save them. Okay? Then we'll go to the hollow grind. Okay, the one thing I notice now is this edge from chopping is so far gone that I can hardly get any feathers at all out of this. I just can't get a bite. Okay? Not on a ridge, not on a blind spot, not on smooth wood. There it goes, a little bit. Okay? So it's there's my answer right there. Okay? This edge was brand new out of the box. Hadn't even used it. By doing that chopping with this hollow grind, it's ruined the edge. So I can't even do any effective feather sticking with it now. I would have to resharpen it. Okay? Is that an option? Sure it is. Okay? But on this channel, I like to show real stuff, right? Real dilemmas, problem after problem, just like this. Okay? The first problem was I dulled the edge, which is not as strong as this one, okay? Because it's a hollow grind, right? In my personal opinion, right, they should have stuck with the Saber Grind. You're going to get a better all-around hard use out of this blade than with a hollow grind, because you saw what happened. I chopped the shit out of that hardened maple, and now it won't feather stick. Okay, Could I touch it up? Sure, I could touch it up. It'll feather stick probably. That's an option, okay? But you know, I want to show real issues on the channel, okay? Now this is a real issue. Plus it's starting to hurt my hand. the top of the I can't get a good, you know what I mean? Now I'm not saying that it's going to hurt everybody's hand, but it's starting to hurt right here, okay? The spine of the knife is starting to hurt when I do feather sticks. Because I tell you, frequently when I'm out in the field, see, I can't even get a good feather stick out of this. It's just completely ruined the edge by chopping with it, okay? So, just wanted to show that portion of this controversy with the SDHF 43. They should have stuck with the original Saber Grind. It's a stronger grind, right? And you're going to get a stronger edge to boot from a Saber Grind, okay? On a hollow grind, the metal is just too thin down here to hold an edge. Once you've started doing hard work with it, it's just too thin to hold an edge. It dulls really quick, as we've seen. Now, you know, if I needed a fire right now, maybe didn't have a sharpening stone or whatever, I'd be screwed because I can't use this knife now. It's a hollow grind and it sucks, right? I thought maybe I'd be able to do it, but this is real world shit right here, right? I thought it would do it, it didn't, right? The hollow grind gave out. It dulled really quick. The Saber Grind is a year old and it's still fairly sharp. I can actually get feathers out of this, okay? But I couldn't get feathers out of the, okay? And these are pretty nice feathers too. I mean, they're pretty wispy feathers, okay? I couldn't even get that far with the hollow grind after using it for 10 minutes, okay? All right, so there's that, all right? I put my 2 cents in to the Debacle, right? I really think they should have stuck with the Saber Grind, right? That shows me that whoever made the decision to put a hollow grind on Chris Tanner's design made a poor choice, right? And the guys who are going to suffer for that are you guys out in the field with these tools. All right, guys, this is Doug Wilson from Yellowhawk Customs Outdoors. Thanks for watching. I hope we did some good here. We'll see you. Bye-bye.